Hello, mate. How's it going? Welcome back to Football Yannick. What's going on? Man City, of course, need to replace Kevin De Bruyne. He's leaving at the end of the season, and he's playing well again, of course. He scored the winner last time Man City played. He looks good, but, you know, he's old. He's mid-30s. I mean, he's younger than me. But he's old for a footballer these days, especially with the pace and physicality of the Premier League. He could still probably do a job for at least another season, but the fact remains, he's leaving Man City. And they will need to replace him. Phil Foden's been off the boil. Incidentally, almost ironically, Cole Palmer would have probably been perfect as that sort of central driving creative force that can get goals and assists and run a game. Cole Palmer, of course, demonstrated that against Liverpool at the weekend. But they don't have him. And they are looking for replacements. Morgan, Gibbs, White, and Florian Wirtz. There's even some speculation that they might go in for both. Now, the money being spoken about for these players is mental. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Obviously Florian Wirtz is an amazing player linked with Man City, Real Madrid, and of course Bayern Munich. Apparently his dad wants him to join Bayern Munich, but he wouldn't mind going to City. I mean, it's not bad free clubs to have. And we must speculate at this point. Are Man City off the hook? If they're going to spend hundreds of millions on players and give them what would be absolutely massively high wages, they've just given Erling Haaland a 10-year deal, like 9-year, whatever, a deal that sees him there at 10 years. I think he gave him a 10-year deal. Anyway, it's like £500,000 a week. Now, my mob, Chelsea, were doing this. But we were doing it on players on 80k a week. So they were seeing it as like a really smart business investment, keeping their value, retaining their services on a low base wage, on incentive-based contracts. Where Haaland, if there's any ever a player to give it to, it's a guy who's just going to score loads of goals and win you games. But Haaland, you get £500,000 a week, and he's been injured for weeks. How much money have they just burnt there alone, The money they pay Erling Haaland, in his recent injury absent, is the transfer fee for a player to a different Premier League club down the table. The money they've just wasted on his wages where he can't play, that's Brentford will be getting a really great player from Scandinavia for that money alone in isolation, and might sell him for a lot of profit or whatever. Or a Brighton or a Bournemouth or whatever. So it just shows you how much money is involved here. And we're going to speculate about some stuff and speak about it. Guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining me as always. Thank you to everyone who's supporting the channel. We're getting loads of subscribers all the time. It's wonderful. I'm very appreciative. So if you are a fan of the content, please do like and subscribe. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, so KDB's out. We don't need to talk about that anymore. He's done. He's gone. He's going elsewhere, and it'll be very interesting. I have a feeling that he might just turn up at MLS, which is fine. Of course, there's speculation that he might stay within the Premier League, or maybe go to Saudi. I did think initially he'll go to Saudi purely on because when questioned about it, he was like, "Yeah, it's a lot of money." He didn't do that. Nah, I don't fancy that. He didn't have any particular, ethical stance on it. He didn't have any sporting level thing it's not high enough level football. He was like, it's a lot of money. You got to think about it. Do you know what I mean? So fair play, But I do think from what he's recently saying, playing at the highest level, that maybe he just wants to keep his options open. And there is a lot of money in certain elements of the MLS deal. It was the old Saudi, it was like the old Saudi Pro League, because it was MLS. They used to have a bit of money for stars. Then, of course, there was the China project in the mid-2010s that sort of stopped and failed when the government was funding transfers, and we saw, the likes of Oscar and other players go out there for a little bit. And then now it's all Saudi. So we'll see what happens with Kev. It'll be a very interesting story to follow, of course. But they need to replace him. And there are stories talking about Wirtz and Morgan Gibbs White. Now, I'm seeing numbers of transfer valuations of Bayer Leverkusen want 150 million euros for Florian Wirtz, which of course would be massively a transfer record in the Premier League, because Chelsea currently hold it for Caicedo. Let's just quickly see in what that is in pounds. Yeah, so it's basically an extra 15 million quid on top of what Chelsea paid for Caicedo. Look, a player like Florian Wirtz is going to be massive money, of course it is. But I'm seeing Nottingham Forest, Morgan Gibbs-White for 117 million here as well, which is mental. I mean, mental, guys. Morgan Gibbs-White is a great player. You know, he got a call up for England after being a backup, you know. Yeah, bro. I mean, in my head, for some reason, I thought he was a Man City youth player, just because there's so many knocking about. But here on Wikipedia, yeah, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and obviously came through there, played, and then was sold to Forest in 2022. Hasn't got that many. He's got very little goals for the appearances, but clear. I mean, he's 25 as well, so he's not like a Ute. He's 25. I mean, he's good. He's clearly a good player. But 170 million pounds. All right, for reference, let's read an article on Team Talk by Fraser Fletcher. Manchester City have had to switch their focus to Forest ace Morgan Gibbs-White, as Florian Wirtz will not be arriving in England this summer. Team Talk can confirm. This is 16 hours ago, and there's been social media reports saying that maybe the deal isn't dead. Premier League sides are now aggressively attacking the market and want to secure their key signings as early as possible to beat competition to the punch. How much competition is there for Morgan Gibbs-White for that money? However, there will be disappointment, of course, surrounding one of the world's most coveted players in Wirtz. The Premier League clubs are starting to back away from the Bayer Leverkusen star and leave the race to the European giants between Real Madrid and Bayern München. Man City have long been admirers of Wirtz, but are pivoting and working towards bringing in Gibbs-White from Forest instead. Team Talk can reveal the Englishman is very keen to make the move from Forest, and his intentions they're aware of his intentions. Yeah, I bet he is. Because he's seen, firstly, Man City, you know, big club, really successful, yada yada. But them peas, bro. And he's 25. It is now's the time. You sign a 6-year or a 5-year deal to see you throughout for the rest of your 30s or into your early 30s. And then, and make all that money and hopefully win trophies. This is the summer. He's been playing really well, generally helping Forest get right up the table. They might qualify for Champions League. If not, they'll qualify for some form of Europe. It's really, really successful. Has been called up to England, even though Tuchel didn't originally call him up. Yeah, man. For him, in his perspective, fair. We'll talk about, the court case in just a moment, because I think a lot of this is quite telling, personally. Forest hope to keep hold of Gibbs-White as one of their key players, but the reality is that it's unlikely, and he will move on to play under Pep Guardiola next season. Talks are set to push over the next week, and City want them ready, for the Club World Cup. Just like Chelsea, just like Real Madrid. A lot of them want to get their deals done before, and that begins on June the 14th, of course. Team Talk understands that City were joined by Arsenal, Chelsea. Very much doubt Chelsea, considering the amount of central attacking quality players. Enzo Fernandez now pushing up, of course. Cole Palmer, Esteban Willian joining. Wants to play centrally. There's others as well. Even Andres Santos can be very offensive at times, in the attacking way. So yeah. And Florian Wirtz and there you go. Florian Wirtz, Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is gonna almost certainly succeed Carlo Ancelotti at Real Madrid, and with that, he will bring his star boy, over to Real Madrid. Now, guys, big money being spent. A lot of people asking the question, what's going on with the court case? Because they've just given Haaland, they've locked him down to a 10-year deal. Of course, Guardiola extended. They're paying incredible money. In the January transfer window, they splashed incredible cash, and they're looking to do so again. I mean, the first thing, bro, if you're like, for example, Marmoush, who cost a lot of money, getting paid a lot of money, a high-profile player, signed in January, and a coveted player who's scoring and assisting loads for Frankfurt. His agent, right? His agent needs to know, bro, that this court case, he's not going to send his star, client there, and then you're going to get done, and he's going to get relegated and all this kind of stuff. Like, what happens there? Unless there's just big contract things like, look, if we go down, you can leave, or I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, because financial fair play, if they're playing in the Championship or even out of Europe or whatever, UEFA, I don't know, because there's Tebas that's like trying to sue them, not UEFA, because they say, would they get eliminated from the Champions League if found guilty? I think there's not a UEFA investigation, but it makes you think, if they're spending all this money, they got to be comfortable, surely. They got to think, yeah, we're fine. Because even if, I don't want to speculate because I've got no ruddy idea, but you just don't spend money like that and commit tens of millions in contract salaries with like Haaland and stuff if you think you're gonna be screwed, and financially screwed, or take serious sanctions or points deductions, or I very much doubt they'll take trophies away from them if found guilty. But do you know what I mean? Like, all these like speculated worst case scenario things. Yeah, surely they think they're okay. But yeah, in terms of, from just a footballing perspective, I do think that, Florian Wirtz would have been a dream for them, but I think, yeah, he probably will go to Bayern or Real. But even Morgan Gibbs-White, he's a great player. He does feel a bit Jack Grealish-y, right? Over £100 million for, an English sort of flair player in his prime. It's going to get Guardiola a little bit, maybe less dribbly, maybe less playmaky. Kind of really, really interesting. But yeah, I want to put it out to you guys, so let me know what you think. As always, I'll thank you for liking and subscribing. Daily content here on the channel, often multiple pieces of content, so do keep it locked. And I hope to see you back here soon. I really do. Take care. Peace.